Welcome to CBR. Norman Osborn is one of the most important Marvel supervillains. But did you know he has had other aliases other than Green Goblin? Today, we'll discuss that and more about the villain's evolution in comics and adaptations. The Green Goblin first appeared in Marvel Comics in 1964, but his identity as Norman Osborn remained a secret until 1965. Unlike his son Harry, Norman did not have as much financial stability. His father, Amberson Osborn, was a failed businessman and inventor who mishandled the family's fortune, and he also took out his rage on Norman. Swearing to be nothing like Amberson, he dedicated himself to being a better man than his father, as shown in Spectacular Spider-Man, Annual Number 14, 1994. Amazing Spider-Man Number 40, 1966, explained that Norman studied and worked hard from a young age, and co-founded Osborn Chemical right after college. He studied chemistry and electrical engineering at Empire State University, where he met Professor Mendel Stromm, who became his business partner. Norman has always been depicted as a man completely obsessed with power and money, to the point of ignoring his own son over his professional obligations. This neglect was shown to be even more extreme in Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 5, Number 72. In the 2021 Amazing Spider-Man series, it was revealed that Norman's tendency for selfishness and obsession were exploited by the demon Mephisto. Osborn Chemical, also known as Oscorp, was going bankrupt when Mephisto offered Norman a deal his son's soul for his desired financial success. To convince Norman, Mephisto explained he wouldn't even remember their encounter if he accepted. With the deal made, Norman became even more addicted to chasing power, which heavily contributed to his descent into madness. Mendel Stromm was eventually arrested for embezzlement, and Norman got complete control over the company. Going through his former partner's things, he found a secret formula written in his notes for a substance that could potentially give people superpowers. Norman began working on a serum based on Stromm's formula. However, there was an accidental chemical reaction that caused the serum to explode in Norman's face, which sent him to the hospital and ignited his transformation into the Green Goblin. In the 1990s, this part of his arc from the 1960s was slightly retconned with some important new details. In Spectacular Spider-Man Annual Number 14, 1994, it was revealed a young Harry switched the chemicals his father was working on because he was frustrated with being ignored by Norman, causing the explosion. After leaving the hospital, Norman further descended into madness and decided to gain control over all criminality in New York. As explained in Untold Tales of Spider-Man Number 8, 1996, Norman adopted the look and alias of the Green Goblin based on a figure from a recurring childhood nightmare he had. The Green Goblin battled Spider-Man several times throughout the years and became obsessed with killing him to the point where they became arch enemies. One day, he managed to capture Spider-Man and discover his identity in Amazing Spider-Man Number 40, 1966. Once Norman realized his arch enemy was his son's best friend Peter, he also revealed his own identity. In that story, Spider-Man defeats the Green Goblin, who loses his memory after the hero pushes him into electric wires drenched in chemicals. Thanks to the Goblin Serum, Norman not only has superhuman strength, reflexes, endurance, and speed, but also a powerful healing factor. He survives, but the impact of that battle causes a deep psychological shift within him. Norman starts perceiving the Green Goblin as an external entity that he can have conversations with, and the villain becomes more obsessed with killing Spider-Man than ever. The Green Goblin makes Norman recall his lost memories and remember the hatred he has for Peter Parker in Amazing Spider-Man Number 96, 1971. As time passed, Oscorp became bigger, and so did Norman's influence. In parallel to his goal of defeating Spider-Man, he also continued expanding his personal empire and getting involved with politics. He became the government-appointed director of the Thunderbolts team, which he weaponized against Steel Spider and Spider-Man in Thunderbolts Number 113, 2007. Always more and more obsessed with controlling the world, Norman continued trying to expand his influence, and when the Skrulls invaded the Earth in the Secret Invasion event, the Green Goblin used it as an opportunity to seize power. Secret Invasion Number 8, 2008 led directly into Dark Reign in Marvel Comics by setting the stage for Norman Osborn to rise in the government and essentially take control over the entire superhero community. He used his immense power and money to manipulate the media and create the narrative that he was the sole hero who defeated the Skrulls. He pretended to be a superhero called Iron Patriot, using Tony Stark's tech. He also took over S.H.I.E.L.D. and renamed it Hammer in Invincible Iron Man Volume 2, Number 8, 2008. This is how the Dark Reign started, an event marked by supervillains completely taking over power over institutions and public opinion in the Marvel Universe. And Norman Osborn was at the absolute top during this era. He formed the Cabal, a secret group of powerful figures, including Doctor Doom, Loki, the Hood, Emma Frost, and Namor, to consolidate control. In Dark Avengers #1, 2009, Norman created the Dark Avengers, a team that included the Sentry, Ares, Marvel Boy aka Novar as Captain Marvel, Moonstone as Ms. Marvel, Mac Gargan aka Venom as Spider-Man, Bullseye as Hawkeye, and Daken as Wolverine. Norman was the team leader as the Iron Patriot, and during the Utopia event in X-Men Comics that same year, he also worked alongside Dark Beast, who is a villainous Hank McCoy from another universe, to take away the powers from mutants using the Omega Machine in Uncanny X-Men number 513. However, Norman's miscalculated decision to eliminate Asgard brings the downfall of his era of ruling. This act leads to the Siege event, which is considered the climax and resolution to the Dark Reign. The Avengers and the Asgardians were finally able to bring Norman down in Siege number 4, and he ended up in jail. With Hammer and all other agencies he controlled dismantled, and with his identity and mental instability exposed, Norman's reputation was ruined, which deeply affected him. But sometime after Siege, Norman Osborn went through multiple transformations, evolving from a disgraced political figure back into one of Spider-Man's arch enemies. Once a free man, he immediately went back to his plans of controlling the world and killing Spider-Man. In Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 32, 2017, Norman was temporarily stripped of his superpowers when Spider-Man forcibly gave him a cure, but he could not handle being a regular person. He tried recreating the Goblin Serum, but was apparently immune to it at the time. So, in search of power by any means necessary, Norman bonded with Carnage and became the Red Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man number 798, 2018. He once again went completely insane by the end of the Red Goblin era, a recurring theme in his stories. He ended up hospitalized but continued to act as a mad supervillain for several more years. Then suddenly he decided he wanted to be a legitimate superhero. In the comic series Gold Goblin, Norman Osborn tries leaving his past as the Green Goblin behind and adopts the new superhero identity of the Gold Goblin. That was an unexpected but well-received redemption arc, in which Sin Eater absorbs the evil tendencies from inside Norman and leaves him with a deep desire to change. As the Gold Goblin, Norman becomes friends with Spider-Man and helps him fight bad guys, but he's far from being well mentally. He is haunted by visions of Gwen Stacy, who he had killed in the Amazing Spider-Man 121 to 122, 1973. In fact, the death of Gwen Stacy saga is a fan favorite, and it's notably marked by the death of Norman Osborn as well. This is one of Marvel's most interesting retcons. After dying in 1973, the villain was quickly resurrected. In Marvel Comics currently, Norman got his powers back and remains a complex hero, using the alias Gold Goblin. In parallel, his son Harry also took the Goblin Serum and later took over the Green Goblin alias. Harry died after a final confrontation with Spider-Man, going straight to hell because of his father's deal with Mephisto, as seen in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, number 72, 2021. As you may have already noticed, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie is fairly similar to early Marvel comics when it comes to the Green Goblin's origins and evolution. The 2002 movie Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker and Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, is widely considered to have the best depiction of the Green Goblin outside of Marvel Comics. In the story, Norman is introduced as the powerful CEO of Oscorp and father of Peter Parker's best friend, Harry Osborn. At the same time, Spider-Man tries to stop the emerging menace of the Green Goblin terrorizing the city. Oscorp is involved in the creation of a new super soldier serum for the military that turns some of the test subjects insane. They are on a tight deadline to deliver the serum to the military, and Norman, confident it had to be ready, took the serum himself as a test. Undergoing a maddening transformation, he killed his business partner, Dr. Mendel Stromm, and a number of military officers. Director Sam Raimi chose to depict Norman Osborn's descent into madness as him hearing the Green Goblin mask call to him and tell him what to do, which fans thought was very well done. He essentially went on a killing spree in his quest for power for Oscorp, but ended up losing himself in his hatred for Spider-Man, who tried and succeeded in stopping him. After fighting Spider-Man and trying to kill Mary Jane Watson, Norman died when his attack with his glider backfired and the glider crushed him instead. Despite his death, Norman's presence was still felt in the Spider-Man sequels, and it appears like the Green Goblin is a mystical entity looming over Harry Osborn. In Spider-Man 2, Harry is haunted by disturbing visions of his father, who pushes him to seek revenge against Spider-Man for his death. By Spider-Man 3, Harry has fully embraced his father's Green Goblin mantle. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn is the only one who directly becomes the Green Goblin, after taking the Oscorp serum left behind by the late Norman. Played by Chris Cooper, Norman only makes a small cameo in the film, as he died from a rare disease instead of becoming the villain himself. A few years later, as a great surprise for most fans, Willem Dafoe reprised his role as Norman Osborn in Spider-Man: No Way Home. This comeback came after nearly 2 decades since Dafoe had last played the villain. The multiversal crossover in the 2021 movie allowed the Green Goblin to manipulate Tom Holland's Peter Parker, which led to the tragic death of his Aunt May. While Spider-Man: No Way Home featured Dafoe's return, there has been no confirmation of an MCU Norman Osborn existing in Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. However, given Osborn's significance in the comics and his connections to the Thunderbolts, there is a possibility that Marvel Studios will introduce the MCU's version of the character in the near future. Speaking of the multiverse, the latest Marvel television animated series on Disney+, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, introduced in 2025 the story of Peter Parker in yet another timeline. In the show's universe, Norman Osborn is Peter Parker's mentor instead of Tony Stark. Voiced by Coleman Domingo, he is the ambiguous CEO of Oscorp and Harry's father, who Peter eventually realizes may not be the best mentor for him. Norman Osborn is introduced at the end of the first episode, where he meets Peter Parker and offers him an internship at Oscorp. In the second episode, Osborn discovers security footage of Peter in an elevator, and, being a very intelligent man, deduces that the intern is Spider-Man. When Peter tries to deny it, Osborn remains unconvinced but expresses his desire to assist him. Although hesitant at first, Peter eventually agrees. Osborn is the one who makes up the Spider-Man suit in this universe. He begins designing some versions that Peter finds them restrictive and difficult to use. But, eventually, Osborn creates the classic white and blue suit, which Peter instantly loves. Osborn insists that Peter and Harry work together in crime fighting, ensuring that Peter has backup when Norman is unavailable. Though reluctant at first, Peter and Harry gradually form a working relationship, while Norman keeps himself informed on all their activities. Norman grows increasingly concerned about Dr. Otto Octavius, suspecting that he is behind a string of recent disturbances. To investigate, he sends Peter, who is taking a break from heroics, to a secure facility. However, Peter encounters Daredevil instead, leading to an unexpected confrontation. While Osborn continues his research on Octavius, Peter learns that the Scorpion is targeting the 110 hideout, where Lonnie, Pearl, and others reside. When Scorpion attacks, killing one of the members, Spider-Man intervenes. However, during the battle, Peter runs out of web fluid and is severely injured after being impaled by Scorpion's tail. Osborn, watching the fight unfold, sends one of his gliders to rescue Peter. The glider transports him to Oscorp Industries Medical Center, where he receives urgent care. As Peter recovers, Norman stays by his side while doctors tend to his injuries. He reassures Peter that his identity remains safe, as no one saw his face during the battle. Norman visits Otto Octavius in prison, while continuing to develop his own technological advancements. In the season finale, he relocates the Oscorp internship lab, but his work is interrupted by Doctor Strange, who accuses him of destabilizing the cosmos. During their confrontation, Osborn realizes that it was Strange's actions that led to the attack and destruction of Midtown High a year prior. After Spider-Man and Doctor Strange successfully defeat Venom, Osborn returns to the battlefield and discovers a fragment of the Venom symbiote left behind. With how Season 1 ended, fans expect Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man to get a Season 2, but that may not be the only version of Norman Osborn around in Marvel adaptations. Actor Coleman Domingo, who voiced Osborn in the animation, has expressed his desire to play the role in the MCU as well. It would also be interesting if the MCU developed his arc towards a redemption, showing the birth of the Gold Goblin. But for now, this is only wishful thinking, since there is no indication the character will be a part of Spider-Man 4 or any other Marvel movie planned for the near future. What are your thoughts on the Green Goblin and the evolution of Norman Osborn in Marvel Comics and adaptations throughout the decades? Would you like to see an MCU version of the character? Let's discuss the character in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching CBR.